Hi, my name is Dr. Kelechukwu Onwukamike. I'm a research scientist from Procter Gamble in Germany. You are listening to Us People podcast with Savia Rocks.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Us People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and today I've got Kelechukwu here with me, who is a scientist, a mentor, and a coach, a career coach, I should say. Kelechukwu, thank you so much for coming on the Us People podcast. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing quite good. Thank you for having me here.
You're most welcome. I want to dive into my first question for you because before we even started recording, I was excited that you was a scientist, and I love scientists. But I also want to know more about your background of who you are as an individual. Could you tell me who you are and where you grew up, which influenced you to be who you are today?
Okay. So as you said, I'm Kelechukwu Onwukamike. I'm Nigerian. Born in Cameroon. So my parents were in Cameroon at this time. Yeah, so I was born and raised up in Cameroon. I was in Cameroon for the first 18 years of my life. So I did all my studies, the primary, secondary, high school, and moved back to Nigeria in 2007 for
Okay.
my university. So I did a bachelor degree in chemistry, but also like moving into that direction was something that I didn't really see as a child because I wanted to do something like medicine or go straight into some kind of engineering. But because of my phobia for blood, I knew that medicine was off the line. And so when I came into Nigeria, I joined the university. It's called Federal University of Technology in Owerri, and I did chemistry, so industrial chemistry, because also it was one area of science where I could use like what we have on trying to understand how we can use it. So how can we use available raw materials to make different types of products? So that's the kind of the concept or the area of industrial chemistry.
Yeah.
And so when I finished from industrial chemistry, I knew definitely that I wanted to do more. I wanted to build up more expertise in the area of especially material design, because one of the biggest influence I think I had in my life was really looking into the crude oil devastation in Nigeria. If you know, like Nigeria is one of the highest oil producers in the world, and you have this Niger Delta region with a lot of crude oil. From the crude oil exploration processes, leading to really, really a lot of environmental degradation, right? So you
Right.
have all these oil spills and all. So the first point was like, how can I be part of the solution? And really, at the beginning, I was looking more like understanding how to address the problem. But going further, I saw that it made more sense to understand how to even not let the problem be there, right? So really
Right.
preventive. And this is something that you can do from a material design point of view. So what are we getting from crude oil? What can we be able to get this kind of materials or this kind of resources, right? This output, this product
Yeah.
from other resources, from other more or less renewable resources, if you may. And so when I went to my master's, I got a scholarship. So I came to Europe in 2013
Yep.
in the Erasmus Mundus master's program. So I did the first year then in Germany, and in the second year in France, working on advanced material design, so functional advanced materials engineering, and basically like how can we design different types of materials. And so again, it really went straight into my area of interest, which is how can I look into our environment, get something that might be considered a waste and use it to solve environmental problems.
Yes.
And so this is what also moved me into my PhD. So I did my PhD specifically using renewable resources to make materials, and my focus was on cellulose. So cellulose
Okay.
basically is like the paper, the tissue you have. So this is mostly cellulose. And so my task in this project was how can we use cellulose and something that you might call unintelligent, right, in
Yes.
terms of like paper, but how can we transform something like that to like plastic bags, just to give you an example. And really looking at the whole process, thinking really into the kind of a closed loop system to really understand that we are not simply using, of course, a renewable resources, but simply creating more waste for the environment. So this is
Yeah.
what I did. So I'm quite passionate about people. And this is why you see that I do a lot of career coaching and also mentoring. Then I'm also quite passionate about sustainability. So this is really a big drive of mine.
Yeah.
And this is also what kind of transitioned me into the industry because I was trying to answer the question like, you have all these nice ideas and with all this research, but it doesn't really make any impact until it's on the hand of someone that needs it, until it's in the environment solving the problem for which it was intended, right? So
Right.
I transitioned then to the industry about 1 year ago, working on packaging. So I work for Procter and Gamble in Germany as a research scientist, working for packaging development.
Ah, see, that's so much information for me. I was like blown away already. But it's inspiring, Kelechukwu, because you're doing something to help change the world. You're not just going into a profession just because it's a profession or just
Mhm.
because it's a higher education. You're going into it because you have a passion to help make the world a better place. You know,
Absolutely.
so for me, that's inspiring within itself. Kelechukwu, who are some of the people who inspire you to do your work every day?
I would say, in terms of my like a very strong mentor that I have, that I looked up to him for
Mm-hmm.
guidance, is my brother. I'm actually visiting him
Yeah.
now. And this
Oh,
is someone that kind of also made a path, right? I could look onto him and find direction and guidance. And this is also something that really moved me into mentoring, right? Because I
yeah.
realized that a lot of times you can have very good students, but they don't just know what next. How do I navigate the next steps? So my brother is definitely someone that I would look up to for direction up to now. So yeah,
You must be
and of
smiling
course
right
a lot
now.
of my teachers. Yeah, I hope. Yes.
uh, Tell me about some of the positive attributes about being a scientist. What are the positive attributes about being a scientist, do you feel?
I would say the first is about being a problem solver. So, really being a problem solver and really being able to make really concrete based conversations based
Yes.
on on research, right? And really also being able to think outside the box. So trying to solve a problem, trying to define how to solve the problem. First,
Mm-hmm.
really identifying what the problem is. And so that also part that helps you to really be able to understand in terms of what you want to do and why you want to do it, right?
Yes.
So I think it's sometimes it's quite interesting because when people hear scientists, I remember one time I was giving a presentation that was for science communication, and so like someone walked up to me later and said, "We want to see more of you on the stage because we have this." Some thought in our mind that the scientist should be someone with some old beers, looking so, like out of the world, and then you are a scientist. So I mean, most times, even as kids, we have this. We want to understand, right? I think this is we all have that ability, that if you want to call it science, mindset, even as kids, curiosity. Yeah. So
Yes.
being curious. Yeah. So it's not something out of the box that you say, okay, are you really a scientist? What does it mean?
Oh, let's talk about education because education is also something big within your life, I do believe. Yep.
Yes.
How do you feel about education? And do you feel that everybody should be entitled to an education? But do you also feel that talent is enough for you to be able to aspire to be who you want to be? Or do you feel like having an education is enough for you to be able to get to where you need to be on your journey or your destination within life? Or do you feel you need to combine both talent and education to be able to help you to aspire to evolve in life?
I would say that the first aspect, I mean, in my own point of view, about education
Mm-hmm.
is that it's to make you to become impactful on one hand, and to make you to be able to identify where you are, really defining where you are. So when people talk of education, and I think I had a webinar recently on this topic,
Mm-hmm.
we most times think about education to be something that must be done in a formal way. Okay, so experience educates us, right? Of
Right.
course, depending on what we are taking out from it and what we want to use. So when it comes down to, I think definitely everyone should get that opportunity to, maybe it helps to put a name to it, then people know, okay, I'm going to school. But you see that most times there's a lot of conversation around whether formal education with its standard procedure that every student has to go through is even the best, right? There's a lot of
Right.
question around this, because eventually when you understand the purpose of education, right, which is to open up your mind to be able to to think for yourself, it's something that doesn't necessarily have to happen in a formal way, right?
Yes.
And of course talent in itself, depending on how you nurture it. So perhaps you have a talent, but you don't know how to best exploit, right? And
Yeah.
there are people that have gone through that, understand, have studied it. They know what it means to have this kind of talent. Where can you use it best? What do you need to be doing to build on it? And this is what you might consider as education in itself. But there are also some people that don't necessarily go through this formal education, and just from experience, right?
Right.
Just by observing. So just understanding that your environment, your society is educating you, even if you don't realize it. The question is, when you don't realize it, then you don't use it, right? And
True.
sometimes, even if you use it, you still feel like it's not being, you are not educated. So I have some people asking something like, does it make sense to go to school? I said, why do you want to go to school? To be educated. Okay. So if you don't go to school, won't you be educated? So we need to really
Exactly.
differentiate between that formal and informal education. But
I like that. I like the way you broke that down. That made so much. Let's talk about the failures because people always talk about success within
mhm,
things, but people never talk about the failures and how we can improve on things. So
mhm.
within science, what are the failures within science, but how do you feel you can turn those failures, learn from them, and make them into a positive thing so you can turn it around and learn to do better?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very interesting question, and this is something that perhaps some of your listeners that are PhD candidates or PhD researchers would be very happy to share a lot of their experience. Um, I would say, like, I give you one of the stories that I always share on this kind of question about failure. When I started my PhD, after about 6 months, 5 to 6 months, done then perhaps up to 60 experiments, I just realized at some point, just by changing certain conditions, that perhaps it's not what it looked like, right? And
Yeah.
I was shocked. I mean, you can imagine, you are 6 months. It's one thing to think you are failing, but it's another thing not to realize that you are failing, right? So really walking in a path that doesn't lead anywhere simply because you don't know it. Because if you realize you're failing, maybe you start trying to work against it. So I walked up to my supervisor and I said, this is it. Like, I don't know what to do. I was devastated. I had so much expectation. We were
Oh.
already thinking of how we're going to make a publication out of it. And just in an instant, like, this is not what it is. There was something else happening. And he looked at me and said, Kenny, failure in research is not failure in your life. Okay,
Exactly.
so this is something else failing, not you. But there is something that you can take out of it, the lessons, experience. What will you do with this experience? What will you
Yeah.
do with what failure has given to you?
Yeah.
Right? So, how do you use it? I think that is what we need to understand. And it changed a lot my perspective because eventually I realized that what we get out of graduate school, as an example, is not the degree, it's us, right? The experience and failure itself is a very integral part of that success
True.
because it is what you use out of failure that matters, not the failure itself. So when it comes down to research, there is a way that people always put it like, oh, I now know how it doesn't work, right? So not it failed, but now I know this is how it doesn't work. And really, it gives us, it changes also the way we see things. And I'm a very big fan of trusting the process.
Yes.
I feel that we do not just arrive, we pass through a process. And that process itself, when you put your eye on the goal, you know that whatever comes along on your path, your eye is on the goal, right?
Yes.
Once there is something you are looking forward to, you know that I would get there. It's just a matter of time. And the failures that you get along the way, it's part of that ingredient, what you need to prepare you when that success comes. So I'm definitely a big fan of failing and failing and failing and failing again until I win.
I like that. I like that. What attributes do you feel are good attributes to be a good scientist, mentor, and career coach? So I'm going to bring all three of what you do into this question. What do you feel are good attributes for all three?
I would say passion,
Mm-hmm.
passion for it, and also curiosity, and also being conscious of others, really knowing
I
that
like that.
as you rise you lift others, really being conscious of other people, the existence of other people that are looking for what you already have and
Yeah.
simply don't know how to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean it also falls down into passion. And you see that like for the other part of my what I do, which is what I told you, like volunteering, real volunteering work,
Yeah.
like the mentoring and the career coaching,
Ah.
it's something that has come out of experience. Of course you can say the scientist part came out of going through a system, right? And getting the
Right.
degree, and then being said, okay, you can be called a scientist if that means anything. But the other aspect is from my experience and my personality. Really being a people's person, it's some also drives me to be conscious about others, and really drives me to want to help them if I
Yeah.
can.
I like that. That's really, really good. How do you mentally prepare yourself for your everyday work? So you go into work, you're getting ready for work. How do you mentally prepare yourself knowing that anything can happen on this day?
Mm. I'll say that I know tomorrow would come. So I go
I
through
like
each
that.
day knowing that tomorrow would come. And whatever the day brings, tomorrow would come. And of course, being able to manage my time, right? So time management,
Right.
also priorities, setting priorities right is very important. Knowing that I have time to do something, and then really being disciplined to be able to enforce it. I think I try to force myself a lot, really knowing that I have a lot to do, and especially with my mentoring work, I it's quite an effort from my end. But again, also using the
Yeah.
opportunity to build others, right? So I mentor people to mentor others, really taking out,
I like
pushing
that.
out that to the next step, really taking back more people and pushing it to the new people to grow. Because again, like the concept here is to build a community, right? This community where people can really know that it's not just about me, right? It's not about you, it's about everyone. And that's why if you see a lot on my LinkedIn post, I always end with till we all win. So
Yes.
until we all win, nobody has
It's
truly
a
won.
process.
And so
Yeah.
yeah, so this is my mindset.
I love that mindset. I saw one of your quotes on the bottom of your screen about process and
Hmm.
about winning. So that's the first thing I noticed when I looked on your profile was definitely that.
Hmm.
Here's a question for you. When you look in the mirror every day, what do you see and what reflection looks back at you and what does your reflection say about you?
My reflection says you can go through whatever you set your mind to.
I
Yes.
I like that. I definitely like that. How would you what would you like to leave your stamp on the world? What would you like people to remember you for when you leave this world?
That's a good question, which is quite interesting because there's one of the posts that I'm yet to make, and it's something like I want to leave empty, right? I want to leave empty. And definitely one thing I want to be remembered for is that I believed in
Mm-hmm.
people, in their capability today,
Yes.
not tomorrow. So believing in them now when they don't even see it. And I want to be remembered that I gave people hope to really look at their current situation and look beyond it. That wherever your background, wherever you're coming from, you can still be what you want to be. And
Yes.
if my life and my experience, when I share my stories, I share everything, I share the difficult times, because sometimes when someone looks at my profile, it looks like a straight line. Oh, he did this in such a short time. Or he did double PhD, double masters. How did he manage this? He's still very young. And then they start feeling overwhelmed and feeling like they are not doing enough, right? And so the story, and that's the process that I always want to focus on. Of course, we are individuals with our own destinies, and everyone is here for a purpose. And once
Yes.
you can put that into people to believe it, and it's because it's true, right? I'm a believer in God, and I believe that God created us for greatness. We are all unique, and we all have a purpose. So once you know you have a purpose in life, you would go through anyhow. That's it. You would
Yeah.
go through anyhow, and this is what I want to be remembered for, that I gave people that didn't see, and I get a lot of these messages, and it gladdens my heart each time that, I gave up on this. But when I read your post and what you went through, I'm going through the same. And I felt like
See?
people like you don't even go through something like this. I said, there's nothing like people like me. We are all the same. We just all have our different stories. And until you listen to someone's story, you never truly know what they're going through, right?
It's true. No, it's true. I totally agree with you. We all have obstacles, which leads me to my next question for you. If nobody was judging you at all, because we all get judged every day, yeah? If nobody was judging you at all, how would you look at life and what would you do better?
I would say that I would keep believing
Mm-hmm.
um, that tomorrow would be better.
Yeah.
And of course, in terms of the judging part, I think this is something that also depends on why you are doing what you do. What is your motive? Right? When your motive is not selfish, if I
Yes.
have some people that come to me and they're like, but why are you even doing so much? You're not getting paid for it. Why? What is the reason? They can't just picture it. Then I said, when you live a life, when you feel fulfilled, seeing others succeed because you could contribute no matter how little. I give you an example. One connection contacted me one time, and he needed some money. He needed to raise some money for his flight. He already got a scholarship, but the
Yeah.
scholarship can only be redeemed when he arrives. And he didn't have
Okay.
anybody, like he was stranded to raise this money. And I said, but your scholarship is worth this much, and you need just like $500 as an example. Then we need to do something about it. And I made a post, and we raised this money with my network within 24 hours. And now
You
he's
see?
here. So when you find joy, I mean, you get to a point in life where this is what you feel fulfilled. And when you talk to people that are fulfilled in what they do, nothing else matters. Of course, people might keep thinking that, oh, there is something that will come out of it, but you don't care about it because you
Yeah.
know in your heart the purpose for which you're doing it. And again, because I know that God gives us gifts to be able to make a difference. And when you are using that gift to make a difference, other steps would follow. Like, you don't need to bother about the next steps most times. And of course, you are also in a position, and in my case, being in a position that I can live out of what I do. Like, I don't need to
Yes.
depend on it to live. I think this is something that I also tell a lot of people that reach out to me. It's good to follow your passion, it's good to find fulfillment in helping others, but you have to live, right? And if you cannot live out of this, then you need to think critically, because nobody also wants to see you in penury when you cannot feed yourself and you are spending all your energy on helping others. It's good, but
Yeah.
it's not a priority. So I'm fortunate by God's grace that I can do what I do and still be able to live out of what I earn, right? So I
Yes.
think this is again something that I feel God brings you to a place where He wants to use you, and He sets the other aspect right. So I wouldn't bother much about how people interpret what I do, but I just know in my heart that the purpose is clear and is pure.
I like that. So you have a balance of life. You taught yourself about what balance is within
Mhm,
life. I like that
mhm.
so much. What one thing do you wish you had known before you started your career?
So career in terms of academic career or industry
It could
career.
be it could be both. You could tell me both.
Okay, I would say that really one thing that I would have done differently, like I give an example.
Hmm.
In my case, still a bit fortunate because I had then my brother that had gone before me. But most times, the decisions in terms of what I wanted to do, being rigid in my
Yeah.
mind, like this is what I want to do, nothing else matters, and not even being able to really explain it. As an example, when I applied to the university, I didn't apply to study chemistry. In fact, I said if I wanted to do pure science, I would do mathematics. That is what I loved doing. So chemistry, yes, but definitely not on my radar. I wanted to do chemical engineering or petroleum engineering
Ah.
because Nigeria had petrol. And you see, my mindset there was more like I want to do this course because I can find a job. And
Yeah.
so it made more sense like, oh, this name looked like something that could have more jobs than doing chemistry. The only part that I could see with chemistry is, oh, you did chemistry, you're a teacher, right? Not really seeing the potential that is inside. And this is a lot of the orientation that we don't get as people in secondary school. So I
Yeah.
think one thing that I would have done different would have been to be very flexible. But I'm fortunate that in my rigidity, I had someone that had experience to guide me, because if I kept being rigid, I think I wouldn't have been where I am today, because I would just always be so fixed without really understanding why I'm fixed. I think it's one thing to have a clear, a kind of a passion, not really passion, but it's one thing to have like a choice, right, on what you want to, the decision to make decisions, but it's important that your decisions should be informed. Make
Yes.
informed decisions. So don't make decisions on the basis of ignorance. So if you want to make a decision, understand why you want to make that decision. Not just saying, I don't want to do chemistry, but you can't explain why you don't want to do chemistry, or why do you want to do this other course. Because I have a job for you. Then maybe we can now take the job part and begin to break down the potential of the other one you don't want to do. And this was what
Yes.
my brother did many times. Like he would take it down, break it, and I was like, okay, now I see the point. So yeah, I think I would have made his life more easier if I was that less rigid.
Describe a sense of your vision for your future. How would you describe your vision of your future to be if it was to be the way you would like it to be?
I would say that long term being into communication, so
Mm-hmm.
science communication, so coming from the part of understanding what I want to talk about and being able to communicate it to the audience. Like as I said from the beginning, this aspect of what science is, and looking out, like, most times when you want to speak, yeah, you know what you want to say, but a lot of people already have this kind of mindset that, oh, he's going to say something I don't understand, and most times
Yes.
they do, and it looks so complicated. So being able to communicate, so I want to see myself in the future being someone that drives conversation around sustainability and also
Yes.
empowerment, right? So like mindset reorientation, and also like being able to like capacity building, so like self development. So this is
Yes.
where I see myself. So combining really science and also communication and also really simplification, right?
Mm-hmm.
In driving conversations.
How do you see the future for the next generation of scientists to come in? Do you think it would be better? Do you think they will evolve to do better? Or because the world is forever changing. But from your perspective, how do you see the future of the next generation of scientists coming into the world?
Yeah, I think there will be a lot of influences, right? Now we're going a lot into AI, into machine learning, into robotics. And so the challenge would be different, of course, solving different problems, but maybe the fundamental is going to be the same. I see science in application. So
Yes.
I think a lot of people have different opinions on that, but my opinion about science is to solve problems,
Yes.
right? So you and really coming breaking down what science is actually is, like I said, like being curious and on setting down the right steps, defining. So first there's a problem, defining, knowing how to define your problem, and knowing how to go about to investigate the problem in looking for a solution. So this will not change. So science is like an art, I would say. Like it's something that you have to deal with it, even if it's not going to be caught in that way. And that's why some people do science itself. But of course, you have to like feel like, oh no, if it have to be in a lab coat, in a white coat, in a laboratory, then I'm a scientist. So this is really not what I see. But also, what I think could be different, and especially for now that I'm also quite passionate about how Africa can understand how best to solve their problems using science. In fact, not just like using education. And that's why I said education. The purpose of education is to empower you,
Yes.
and whether it's formal or informal, if you don't feel empowered to do something, in my opinion, you are not educated. And that takes away. So the question is, are you empowered? Are you empowered to do something? You are educated in it. Of course, you can try to find how to better understand the environment. But again, that is what I say education. So coming back to science, I think what I would want to see, and hopefully into the future, like your question said, would be where Africa breaks down the science into what they actually need by using what they have to get what they need. So, really taking out from the science the whole picture, not just going into the university and reading chemistry and reading all the different types of reactions, but really choosing what, starting from what we have. What do we have? What resources do we have? What chemistry can we do on these resources to make this product that we are importing, or this product that we don't have the capability? Or how can we move from this step to some steps closer to what we need, right? And this is my I would say my wish, right? That the next generation of scientists, and in, of course, one step more in terms of like the education of the next generation of scientists in Africa, which is where my focus is now, should be with respect to target target need. What do we need this particular course on? What do we want to make out of this? Like it has to be target, it has to be unique, not generic like we're having today. So not a
Wow.
situation where you are learning something that there is no application for you in your country. I don't think it's necessary.
How long do you think that will take? If you had to put years on it or a stamp on it to say, and how can we as people help to make things better in not just in one country but for every country? How can we help as
Uh,
individuals?
yeah, I would say that the first step would definitely be what we are doing now,
Yeah.
reaching this audience, and then with the stakeholders, because the the point is not really like would it take 10 years for something like no, it can happen now, right?
Yes.
We know what we have. We start with really getting the stakeholders first of all to understand what this means, right? So like coming down into like curriculum, changing our curriculum, making African curriculums, right? So making curriculums that are relevant to the African context, and this could be even down to specific to your country. So I give you an example. If you tell me like, okay, how would you go about it? I would say first step, let me go a bit more into my area, like let me go a bit more to chemistry and material design. So I would say step one, we need to have a link between what we have starting from a raw material. Let's say crude oil Nigeria has. We start from crude oil, right? This is what we already have, we know it. Now the
Yeah.
question is, what are the different, in terms of, you might call specialties or courses or programs, or what they call in the university, like yeah, courses, right? Like chemistry, physics, biology, whatever. How do we move? Who are the, from there into the, from the crude oil exploration all the way down to a final product, say in the case of diesel or even fine chemicals or pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
We need to find this link. We need to build our curriculums, so the each person that is responsible in those different areas, if they need more kind of trainings on how to develop the right curriculum, fine. But this is something that is very possible. We need to have a straight line on every
Yeah.
resource that we have in Africa to what we want to use it for. And in every step, that's why I talked of empowerment. You now see that today, which is a big concern for me, we are in a situation where we go through university to get a job. So
Yes.
at the end of the day, but now there are no industries to give you that job. So what happens to the graduate? Everybody becomes everybody else, right? So you just have to learn different things and just survive. And at the end of the day, the purpose for which I feel, instead of spending 5 years teaching me different reactions that I would never need,
I
teach
never
me what
use.
I need
Yeah.
to know to use it. And that's why when people come out from the university, they feel empowered. That's why education is empowerment. So if you tell somebody that is a chemist, perhaps that graduated from the university, like, do you feel empowered? I know a couple of reactions. Can you use it? I didn't even know the need of that. So we need to break that and stop, I would say, following the way that Europe has developed because we want to. We need to stop it, make it our own, define our own. And this is something that doesn't need 10 years. It's really something that if they want to do it and they have the right strategy and they have people like us, there are many others that have this different
Yeah.
expertise to come in and build what you might call like a blueprint or a roadmap, right? Really step by step, but also willingness, right? And there must be willingness because it's not something that is an easy transition. So if you imagine a lot of professors, some of them, they just don't want to do more, right? They just teach the same lecture notes they have used for 20
Yeah.
years and they are unwilling to adapt to any change. So I think this is where you might start having some kind of friction. But once it's clear to us that education really is the base root of any sustainable society. And when I say education,
Yes.
I don't mean passing exams and getting good grades. I really mean being empowered. Education has to empower you. So we need to build our curriculums to empower us. And this is something that I think is possible within the next couple of years. But we need to
See, I
start.
like that. Now, we need to
We
start
need to start.
now. I like that. What are you most proud of that you stand for?
I would say people again.
Yeah.
So
I know you're a
yeah,
people person.
yes, yes, yes. I'm a strong believer in people because I feel they are the ones that can make a difference. by their
Yeah.
decisions, by their indecisions, by taking a stand against every form of discrimination, every form of vices in the society. They can make a stand, right? And they can make a decision, not based on what is happening to them, but they have the ability to decide, irrespective of what is happening to them. They can choose. So
Yes.
this is definitely something that I stand for.
I like it. What is the best advice you have ever received from somebody?
You trust the process.
Ay, ay, ay.
Yeah, trust the process. The process
See,
is everything that comes inside, but you have to trust it.
no matter which way or direction it goes, I
Yeah,
understand it. I definitely
exactly.
am.
Trusting the process, and of course, for me, believing that what I go through, if God allows me to go through anything, that is that process I'm going through, it would make
Mhm.
sense at the end. So I don't need to like fight I mean, things that are not within your control, right? That
Yes.
you just find yourself in it, not consciously doing things and waiting and say, oh, but now let me trust the process. No, but doing your part, right? Do your own part and go through, like, as I said, I didn't consciously make mistakes in my experiments, right? It just did not work in that way. So, but then that was also like the learnings from it really gave me the opportunity to like not just rebound, but had a very successful PhD research and got
Yeah.
an award for the PhD. So I
See?
think it was like the biggest award I've received, and this was coming from the PhD. So,
See?
and also coming with something on sustainability. So it like combined all the aspects that I really liked and I'm quite passionate about.
See, so say for instance, you weren't doing what you're doing. You're very passionate about what you do. And I love interviewing people who are passionate and love what they do. But if God was to give you another path, what do you think you would be doing if you was not doing this today?
Let me think.
Ah.
I would say that if I was not doing what I'm doing today, um, I would likely have been maybe full time counselor.
Ah, okay.
Yes. So I would again still something that has to do with people.
Yeah, see again, people. So no matter where you go, you're just people.
Somehow in a different aspect, yes.
When was the last time you felt totally at peace with yourself? Because you do so much every day.
Mhm.
How do you break down your time to say I'm gonna have some time for Kelechukwu to just have peace? When was the last time you had felt totally at peace with yourself?
That's a very interesting question, and I would have to think very, very hard about it. Really, I have to think very hard. I think this is the part that I need to work more, because at the moment, just with so much things happening around, it's
Mhm.
really difficult to just be yourself. But if I remember, if there is any time that I felt that way, it was maybe not specifically with the date. I can't remember the date, but just knowing that I'm making a difference and
Yeah.
just gives me that peace. Like recently, a mentee of mine got a funding, and we have looked forward for it for a long time.
Yeah.
And that kind of relief, I would say. But to be sincere, really taking out all the noise and just being myself. I need to work on that part.
Oh, everything in life is a process, so I
Yes.
totally understand where you're coming from. Here's
Mm.
a hard one for you.
Mhm.
If you was to give me a title of a movie to describe your life, what title of a movie would you give me to describe your life as a person?
Hmm. That's a good one, and really a hard one. Let's see. If there's one thing I remember more, is always what happens in the movie than the titles. So I have to think really hard to think of one. Something is coming to my mind. That's a hard one.
I got him thinking, everyone. I got him thinking.
Yes, that's a hard one. I have to think of, maybe it also points me out as someone that doesn't watch a lot of movies, but okay. So maybe if you move to a book, it might be easier.
Let's move to a book. Let's move to a
Yeah.
book.
So I would say Ben Carson for sure. Think big.
Ah, you knew
Um,
already.
yes.
Okay.
So I can think of another one, but that's definitely one the top on my list because it's also an example of someone that
Mhm.
came from everything disadvantaged,
Yeah.
but denying to sit and just how do you call it, sulk about it,
Yeah.
right? So we are not. I'm a believer that we don't choose where we are from, who
Yes.
we are, where color of our skin, our race, our country of origin. We don't choose these things. Who we are born into, we don't.
Yes.
But when we have the chance to make decisions, we can choose our path
Yeah.
without looking back and saying, this is holding me back. No matter the disadvantage, you can choose. Is it going to be easy? Definitely not, but you can choose. And this is like his life and what he did and what he stands for and what he has become is really an example when you can look at, if this person can go through this, I can also go through. I mean, mine is not as bad, but I can. So yeah, that would be a good example.
I like that. Thank you so much. Where is the most interesting place in the world you have ever been to, which has helped to teach you and inspire you to do what you do every day?
I would say, in terms of the place, I don't know whether I can connect the place to what I do,
Mm-hmm.
but I would say definitely in my passion would be Niger Delta's area of Nigeria. When I did, in Nigeria, you have the Niger Delta area of it's a region. So I did my youth service. As Nigerian, you have to do this 1 year service for the country. And I did that and I was served in Port Harcourt. So this was also the first time that I was in these oil producing communities. And
Yeah.
I could see a stark, clear difference between people that are living in abject poverty, surrounded by a lot of wealth.
Yeah.
In fact, like you cannot contemplate like how can this doesn't make sense. I'm really seeing like not just living in abject poverty, but suffering from environmental problems from
Ah.
the same source that should give them wealth. It doesn't just come with that they don't get the money, but it also comes with a cost on their source of living, on their agriculture, on their fishing, on their water bodies. So it's like it's a curse,
Yeah.
basically. Like you see something like this, no, but this doesn't make sense. And this is where I started really thinking strongly about what can we do different. And of course, also another aspect is really, which perhaps is another part of what I could leave as an advice, is that don't think too much about how big the problem is. Simply ask yourself, what contribution are you making? So don't say that,
Yes.
oh, what difference can I make? I'm just one person. No, but do something. Take a step towards being part of the solution. Don't just
Yes.
sit back, right? So, and this is what really kind of motivated me more into like designing material designs from renewable resources and the whole sustainability part of my life.
Oh wow. It all makes sense now to me. It all makes sense. What advice would you give to somebody looking to become a scientist? What advice would you give to them from your heart to say, these are the reasons why you should be a scientist?
Yeah, I would say that the first I would say definitely is that they have to be curious,
Mm-hmm.
like finding answers to whatever is around them, and also knowing that perhaps putting it this way, because I'm just trying not to make it look like if you are not a scientist, you cannot make a difference. So I'm trying to be very mild on the response.
Yeah.
But since you specifically called out scientists, I want to first put that disclaimer out there that definitely you could be make a lot of impact not being a scientist.
Yeah, of
And
course.
so,
Yeah.
but in terms of being a scientist, I would say one of the fulfillment part is really, like you look at something and you know how it was done, right?
Yes.
Like as kids, when I look at a bottle, I'm just thinking, oh, this is a bottle, but how was it made? What technology was used? How did it come together? Or looking at products like your cream or your soap or your paint or different chemicals, really, like, how did they come about? Where is it from? How did they make it, right? Can I make it? Okay, first I can make it. Can I influence it? Can I make it different? Can I make it better? Really,
Yeah.
that if you're someone that wants to see how you could use your skill and your ability to think to
Yes.
really make a difference, then this is definitely an area that you want to pursue. And of course,
Ah.
they would say at the beginning that, okay, you have to be good in maths, in physics, in chemistry, all those basic. I mean, at the end of the day, it's their fundamental laws, right?
Yeah.
That helps you know what makes sense. So if I say that if you put this into this could happen, I think you want to know why. So you need to understand the basis, right? And this
Yeah.
is what all these courses do. And sometimes some people be like, but I do not see the physics, I don't touch the physics. So this is also that aspect of really connecting what we do. Perhaps we could do it differently, like into practice, because what we learn more are those that we use our hands to do, not
Yes.
writing numbers and you just have to feel like you are cramming it. But when you see how it is used, what is its application in real life, then you can say, I see how to connect it. So
See? See? Define what success means to you, because we all have a different definition of what success means to us. But what does success mean to you as an individual?
that's a good question. Success to me means a combination
Hmm.
of many failures, and
You
how
come back to it again.
and how and so if I want to define success, I say success is like, as they would say in chemistry, it's an equation, right?
Yes.
It's like an equation. That equation has failures in different forms over time and other successes, right? The whole process. But eventually, from each failure, something is picked, experience, apply to the next step. So when you fail on something, you say, okay, now what do I do different? I change this. And then you fail again. What do I do? I change this and this. All these different permutations of failures with the lessons that have been learned together, right? That has built the experience of the process that eventually becomes a success. And that is why, for me, success is not absolute. I do not believe that success is an absolute. So, what that means is, I do not believe this is success. I believe the process gives the success. So when you are moving through the process, you need to appreciate your steps, right? So you don't say, I wait until that success arrives, but you need to appreciate
Hmm.
your steps. And that is why you see that I always, in my post again, say we are always work in progress. And somebody once asked me that, so when do we arrive? At what point do we say, now I said, never. Actually, I don't want to feel like I've done that, because the moment you feel now this is success, I have received it, it's in my pocket, what next will you do?
Yeah, it's
Right.
true.
So what next would you do? So your whole life is learning, unlearning, relearning, going through the whole life with these experiences, taking out what you need for your next steps, winning, losing, still winning, and going ahead, influencing, impacting others, making a difference all the way till you exit the world, but leaving your imprint along the whole path, right? And I think if someone wants to define success itself, perhaps it's when we are not here, right? That What
Yeah.
you have left behind, people could say, ah, this is what this person stood for, this is what impact he made, and this is what we are using. And how much of it is being used generations to come is how you could define maybe how successful you were. But as long as you don't leave, because the most important is what how you end, definitely,
Yeah.
right? So if you go through the whole story and then at the end something goes terribly wrong, then maybe it invalidates the whole process, the whole part that you stood for. So
Yeah.
we need to like really see that this is a process. And even for those that, of course, you have what you might call goals, right? So you set a goal and you want to achieve a goal, so you set your strategies and you aim towards the goal, so you have measures on how you can assess your success on that goal. Now, but that goal should lead to some other goal. So even if that goal has smaller goals that you can say, okay, now, like me, I'm a big fan of celebrating small steps. That, oh, now I made one step, that is great, now I make another step, I took two back, I made one more. So at the end of the day, when you don't see success as absolute but really integral part of, like, failures are just around the whole process, then success becomes something that is ongoing, because you also open your mind, that ability to say, I don't know it all. Yes, this is good. I celebrate this, but there is something more. Not because you are just pursuing shadows, no, but because you know that if you sit and say, now I have arrived, what happens? You simply
Yeah.
deteriorate.
That's it. See, you give some good stories and some good responses, I must say.
Thank you.
Here's one for you, because we're close to the end, but here is one more for you. If you woke up in the morning and you looked in your bank account and you had infinity money, so much money, no matter how much money you spent, you always had more, what would you change in all of the industries that you're in? So what would you change in the science industry? What would you change in the mentoring industry? And what would you help in Africa to become better in the educational industry?
That's a nice one. And I wish I get up in the morning and I see this infinite amount of
Well,
money.
I'll pray for you.
It's possible, yes. So I would say that the first thing that I would change would definitely be the education format or curriculum strategy
Yes.
in Africa. That's for sure.
Mhm.
I think once this is set up, the other things come in place, like the mentoring. Of course, you spend so much time now perhaps to mentor, because you have to bring people from somewhere up that could have been taken care of before, like information, in terms of all these capability building, not necessarily just teaching people like pass an exam, leave, but really
Yeah.
building them up. So I think the education part would be where I would focus more, because once education is set aright, that you understand where your education is going to end up, how you are part of the picture, how you are part of making a difference in your country, in your society. Then it comes down into this aspect of saying, like, the healthcare would be taken care of, because this everybody is making that contribution and building the society. And then the support system that each person needs, the community mindset, right? That people think that we I don't have to take advantage of you for me to grow. Like, I don't have to keep you out of the picture to grow, that we can all grow together. So I
Yes.
think once this is set up, this is definitely, and it would need this infinite amount of money, because to be able to really set that, without, of course, because now you might say, oh, I want to make this kind of difference, and then you have all these challenges like, oh, it's going to cost so much to
Yeah.
train this and set up facilities and laboratories, and making sure that students get internship placement so that they can actually practice what they have been learning, but even bringing down that practice in the course of their studies. So not going to the being so many people trying to do an experiment and nobody's really doing anything because you don't have those resources. Definitely. I
Yeah.
think once this is set aright, every other thing would follow.
See? One thing at a time. Most
Yes.
definitely. Finally, my final question for you is where can we find you on all your social medias? And if anybody would like to contact you, just or like I did, how can they contact you?
I would say LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I shared my LinkedIn handle with you. I can still share it again. I
Yeah,
think you will share it in the podcast. So
of
that is the
course.
easiest way that you can reach me. So send a connect invite. I'm going to accept, and you can DM. I try to respond. You can imagine that it's quite a lot of effort these days. And something about me, like I don't ignore people, and that is about me.
Yes.
And so it's sometimes always kind of not so good when I see that there are so many messages and I'm trying not
I know how
so
you
hard to
feel.
respond. You know this already. So, but
Yeah.
again, I still say, yeah, send the invite. It's much easier to reach me on LinkedIn than say by my email. So I'm
Okay.
more frequent on LinkedIn.
Kelechukwu, one question, Kelechukwu, before you go. I want to know what your name means because I really like just saying it.
Okay, so Kelechukwu,
Yeah.
Kele is Igbo. So Igbo,
Yes.
Kele means thank, Chukwu means God.
Ah,
So Kelechukwu
okay.
means thank God.
Ah, you have the perfect name.
Yes, I do.
Ah,
And,
see,
and, and so you
see,
see it a lot. If you see Chukwu ending or Chi,
yeah,
typically this is God. And for Christians, families in Nigeria, a lot of their
yes.
kids have this Chukwu or Chi in their names.
Ah, see, I love that. See, I must change my name. I'm gonna change my name now.
So you can put a Chi somewhere and that will be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna do it, and then I'm gonna send it to you. Okay, so you have to approve it, right?
That would be nice. Happy to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Chelikuku, I want to thank you so much for coming on the Ask People podcast. You've been such an inspirational guest on the podcast, and
Pleasure
I
is
want to
mine.
thank you so much.
Okay.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to the Ask People podcast. Please remember you can subscribe to Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and any other platform that you prefer listening to. Please also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can also donate to the Ask People podcast by simply going to the Savia Rocks website or typing in paypal.me/Ask People podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Stay happy, stay positive, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another.
Good. Yes. Okay. Yeah, very good. Nice, long conversation, but interesting. You're an interesting host, so it's easier to flow in that aspect.